This is the story of two of the biggest stars in the world.
The father is Woody Allen, writer, director, actor. The mother is Mia Farrow, his co-star and mother of his 3 children.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to You'll Probably Agree. Today, I have someone we haven't seen in a while on the show since I think the heydays of it. When we went into the bar and I think we told people. We went to a bar pre-COVID, and then we told people to shut up because we were rolling, or we just like try to find like an area inside of a bar where people were less loud,
or the basement.
Oh, the basement area was great. Yeah, yep. That one was great. Anyways, today we're going to talk about something I wanted to talk about for a while, but I didn't know how to approach it because I was very, very, very on one side, and I would just get too mad and all worked up. And now as I become older, I don't get as worked up about things. And
that's a good point.
Yeah, I start seeing sort of the other side of everything. But Nick interviewed the directors of Allen versus Pharaoh, and you kind of got to, and it was for a piece for Vulture, and you got to find out how they got the footage and all that other good stuff. Basically how they found these documents we haven't seen in like 20 years.
Right.
And is he guilty? No, I'm just kidding. And taking away from it, I always remembered like you and some other people were like fond of Woody Allen movies, and for the longest time,
definitely.
I can't believe they like that piece of, and then now I'm older and I'm going, wait a minute. I've seen a lot of movies that I really like and I still watch it, like Chinatown. And I'm like, yeah, well, Roman Polanski's disgusting, but it wasn't a bad movie. But outside of that, I think there's a certain degree of, I think there's a reason why we could separate the art from the artist, but I'd like to get your take on it before I start rambling like I already have.
I mean, well, I think it's about kind of what's like the most honest reading of something, especially if like we accept that, Woody Allen did do what Dylan Farrow has said he did for decades, right? Which is what that documentary Allen v. Pharaoh brings to light, along with all of the evidence of a cover-up, essentially, on Allen's part to cover up the story and to kind of silence investigators, but also that the documentary brings to light even the video of young Dylan talking about the alleged abuse right after it would have happened, all that kind of stuff to make you think that like, okay, I believe that this happened, and then now we're talking about like, what do we do with the art now? I think for me, it's I have found some kind of comfort in just realizing that like, what if we just kind of look at Woody Allen's movies as like, okay, this is made by a pedophile. So now what does that mean looking back at it? And that's almost like a more honest, interesting reading than like trying to deny that reading or that kind of like context. The same way with Michael Jackson, who I fully believe like did the horrible things that are detailed in Finding Neverland, or Leaving Neverland, Leaving Neverland. The documentary,
very, very different movie.
Exactly. I always get confused. But like another documentary that like details like this abuse by also using these, interviews with the people who are alleging the abuse and so forth. And ask you to watch their interviews and say like, okay, do you think they would be lying about this, basically? And so like, wouldn't it would be more kind of honest or more useful to, instead of denying, that like, because we love Michael Jackson music so much, be like, okay, no, this music is like made by a pedophile. Well, what does that mean? That's all that is like. And that doesn't, people don't want to do that, I feel like, because they either want like one or the other. They either want like the answer that he's a pedophile and get away, or it's like, okay, he's not a pedophile, or I'm not going to think about it because Michael Jackson, he's dead. So we can't, quote unquote, cancel him or whatever.
Yeah.
But we can just like keep dancing to his music. So basically for me, I haven't watched any Woody Allen movies of recent. But I sure love the cinematography in them by Gordon Willis. Or like, I certainly, like you mentioned, I was a big part of my film school interest, and that was a huge part of my like identity, along with me and like countless other people. Um, but I would be curious to go back to them as a type of, as reading them in that context of like, what does it mean if this is made by a pedophile? How does that kind of like inform the story and so forth? Um, which might take away from some of like the romance or something, but again, it would just be a more honest reading of it.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
it's not really separating the art from the artist, but it's like kind of embracing or acknowledging it, but still allowing the art to be there,
yeah.
but with a more honest context.
Absolutely. And I think that's a wonderful way to think of it, because I was like, how could you still watch a Woody Allen? And first off, that was certainly not a knock on you about liking Woody Allen movies.
No, it's a great.
Actually,
It's very true.
no. The thing was, I actually really admired that you could do that, and I couldn't. I'm
Do what?
like just watch a Woody Allen movie completely objectively and be like,
Mm.
oh, that's a good movie. You know,
Mhm.
like, yeah, like, because like whenever I watch it, and I just couldn't separate the art from the artist, because there was I think there's a level of, it's either admirance or nostalgia or whatsoever. When we usually see a film that we like, we don't know much about the filmmaker or their
Mhm.
personal life,
Mhm.
right? So I never really got into Woody Allen movies and watched them as a kid, because A, I wasn't really kind of interested in that genre at
Mhm.
that point. And B, I heard stuff. I didn't even know about the stuff with Dylan Pharaoh, but I heard
Mhm.
the stuff about Soon Yi, and I'm like, he married his like teenage stepdaughter. It's disgusting. And he makes love stories.
Right.
And that was kind of the thing. I'm like, how can I watch a movie about a guy who makes love stories
Right.
and who says like he likes young women? It's sort of like the same thing where I think right after Louis C.K. basically got canceled, there was this movie that he was supposed to have come out that he finished. I
Yep.
think like I think maybe you saw it,
I
and
did.
yeah, you and Fagerholm saw it, Matt Fagerholm, broadreaper.com. And I think he said, like, he quoted some scene where um Louis C.K. loves talking about masturbating, and he said
Yep.
this movie doesn't deserve it to be not seen. It deserves a restraining order or
That's
something of
funny.
that nature.
That's funny.
And yeah, it's like that's kind of how I felt watching it. But it's like I always think now, because now that I'm older, I'm like, well, there are people who saw movies like Chinatown, and it's like it's not as connected.
Mhm.
Oh, wait a minute, it is in a way. I was gonna say it's not as connected to um Roman Polanski's personal life as much, but then it's like, well, there's that whole thing with the sister,
Mhm.
and although he didn't have sex with the
The
sister, he
young
had,
woman, yeah, and the
yeah,
right, and the girl in like John Huston's character or whatever.
yeah. So now I'm going
Right.
through the same process you are, where it's like, I'm guessing maybe you didn't know everything initially, or if you
Yeah.
did, or you didn't, because the one thing that really hit my head when I was watching it was, I'm like, the 90s was a very different time.
Mhm.
Like there, like I'll just confess, I'm a 35-year-old man, and uh during that time, during the night, like there's just so many things that people said that are absolutely like no goes and tacky, just things
Mhm.
you wouldn't want to say in social circles in general, where to me it was normal, you know. So
Right.
I think when people heard about sort of all this, these accusations about stars and stuff like that, we didn't take it seriously because we liked the work. And I think there wasn't as much of a cultural awareness of what's going on now.
Y-
But I,
Yeah,
yeah, I could
I
watch a
think it's
Roman Polanski film and separate it just because I was a kid when I saw it, and I'm like,
right.
well, I was a kid. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
no. Or just like when you're, yeah, when you're that age, you do like really, you just don't want to believe it, and you're more likely to not want to believe it. I totally was a part of that thinking too. I never really looked into the Sunyi thing, or I was like, oh well, yeah, he does make movies about relationships with younger women and stuff, but well, that's okay. And I never really thought too much about the accusations. I never looked into it. But certainly, yeah, at the time that was all a part of the public narrative was much more in Woody's favor,
Yeah,
um, along with other things. But, yeah, definitely. But I think it's also like very okay for us to like take that step back, um, and realize that, and also be like, yeah, we're just not like you don't have to like put Woody Allen on a pedestal,
Yeah.
especially when like there's so much in the documentary that's revealing of his like behavior and how he treats people, and how he talks to Mia when all this shit is going really bad, and it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't want to support that person, you know.
Yeah. It's like he
Um,
becomes, it's sort of like how in life people play characters to get along. Like he plays the nice, happy-go-lucky guy, but then behind closed doors, it's like even not even behind closed doors, like
mhm,
behind Mia's back, he just kind
mhm,
of transforms into this different guy. But
mhm.
I don't want to get it. There's like a whole podcast about it. Go listen to their podcast. They're
It's a good podcast.
yeah, they're the official.
Mhm.
I don't know what it's called podcast.
What,
Yeah,
the Alan v. Farrow podcast?
yeah. Is it
I
literally
think it's
just
just
called
that. I
that?
think it's Alan v. Farrow. Yeah, with
Oh well, that's easy.
yeah, yeah.
Oh
Amy Ziering leads it. She's got a great voice. She's great.
my
And they
goodness.
go into
Yeah.
the behind the scenes stuff of it, and yeah.
It's amazing. Like I think when I was reading your piece, that I think at one point Amy said to you, I'm saying Amy like I know her, but she said to you, like there's so much more footage and
Hmm.
evidence that they just couldn't even fit in the film.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna guess as a plug to that podcast, if you want to get really depressed after listening to this one, you can I guess they're gonna go over those details from those filings that they just didn't have time to
Yeah,
fit
I think that,
them.
or just like I guess there was like, yeah, more like files and stuff, but um, they used the podcast too to supplant stuff that they couldn't fit in that they found out after filming.
Yeah.
Um,
Which so like are there any artists like because I know there's some that I love that even I'm sometimes like I can't accept that they
hmm.
suck. I think there's another thing. I think another reason like we can't separate it sometimes is because if it is linked to something that we like and our whole day is just miserable and we're just going through the drudgery of working in the combine, it's like we need to watch something that's sort of like soul food and comfort food,
Hmm.
and we might accept that certain things happen, but you're like, hey, it's like us eating meat, it's
Hmm.
like, well, are you going to tell everyone who's eating meat to be a vegetarian? Of course not. And pointing fingers in people's faces saying they're bad because they like someone is ridiculous.
Hmm.
But I think it's just a way to kind of decompress, and then knowing that that thing that you like is no longer something you should watch, or I think you can watch it actually and
Yeah,
separate
I
it.
mean
But
it's
yeah,
well,
but it's
it's
like
like
frowned upon by society. Like if someone saw you like walked in a room, saw you watching Woody Allen movie, they'd be like, "Oh, how can you watch this?" It's just like, look, I liked it when I was a kid. I
mhm.
like it now. I know there's disgusting things in here, but like sometimes I just like what I like. It's a
Yeah,
simple
yeah.
thing.
In that regard, there's like a whole lot of romance for like city living to be taken from Woody Allen movies. I mean, Manhattan was easily one of the texts or art pieces that made me want to live in a city, and that's why I'm here now, is because of that
Mm.
movie in
Oh my
large
goodness.
part.
Yeah. So
Or just
that
like how
is
beautiful it
nostalgia.
is, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, nostalgia is like presenting this romance as this
Yeah.
like kind of otherworldly thing that you can have if you move to the city.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, you were asking about like other people that I like have had a similar relationship with in
Like,
terms
is there other movies where you struggle with the director's art?
of, I would need like examples. I can't think of like,
Well, like Polanski, for instance, like we were
yeah,
talking
I'm not
about.
gonna
Yeah.
like run out and watch a Polan. I mean, I would watch it with the same thing,
Yeah.
but I'm also not. I'm never gonna watch a Polanski movie and not think about who he actually is.
Yeah. I guess
And I
it
think that's kind of
depends.
part of it, is like some
Yeah.
people want to be able to have that freedom. It's like, I just want to watch Chinatown, man. That's all I want, you know? But like, no, like this is the honest read. I keep going back to that, but that's just, I feel like that's a big part. That's an important part of it.
Yeah.
But I don't believe in like the, like trying to hurt someone's penny bank. Like it's just not gonna happen unless you're like a current artist. They don't, who like should not be supported. But like with people like Woody Allen and Roman Polanski, like they're gonna keep doing whatever the fuck they want. Excuse me, what they want to do.
It's
Um,
okay. I already
and
made a more perverse
yeah,
analogy.
and like Woody's still gonna make movies and stuff. So like if you want to see him, you can go find him, seek him out.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but in terms of you're still gonna like you have a choice to watch him or not, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any like it's kind of
Oh,
like
you
okay,
don't have to pluck one out. Don't
no,
worry.
no, but I think like here's like like I think like a more immediate example that would speak to people and make more sense is like Victor Salva, who made the
Yeah.
Jeepers Creepers movies.
Hmm.
Do you know about him?
I'm gonna guess he raped someone or something.
Yes, and like
Yeah.
a boy like on the film set of a previous movie and stuff, but then was still able to make like three Jeepers Creepers movies.
The funny thing is, it always to me there's two very big things I always thought about. One is that it always depends on what the work is and if it ties to their personal life. I haven't seen Jeepers Creepers, but I have a feeling maybe it doesn't, unless there's like some element of lust in there I'm not
I think
aware
there's
of.
definitely like boy lust or something in there, or
Oh,
like
okay.
teenage boys or vulnerability boys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think it's just the easy question of like you could easily tell people about that and they would be like, I don't want to watch Jeepers Creepers,
Yeah.
you
I mean,
know?
or you could think about Brian Singer, and I'm like, well, I
Okay,
could
yeah,
still
Bryan
watch
Singer.
X-Men Days of the Future Past. I don't remember a scene where all of a sudden Wolverine's like, I like young boys, like
No, but I
I,
mean that career was made, in part from a lot of broken lives and families, and that's
yeah.
so yeah. I I mean I feel like if I were to watch a Bryan Singer, like if you were to watch The Usual Suspects, right, and you're gonna see Kevin Spacey
Yeah.
right in a Bryan Singer joint,
Oof. Yeah.
it's gonna like you if any at the very least if you want to watch it, fine, but like you have to be aware, like kind of acknowledge about like what the true context is of it about these people. If you
Absolutely.
believe, again, if you believe, uh, their accusers and so forth.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like that's also great reason to just to not, So like, I don't imagine watching Usual Suspects anytime soon. And I feel like there's plenty of other movies we could talk about other than Usual Suspects.
Oh, of course.
You know
I
what I
mean,
mean? Like,
like I wonder what he did with what he was going to do with Bohemian Rhapsody, because I mean the plot line of that alone that must have triggered something in him with Freddie Mercury's life.
I don't know, maybe it did or maybe it didn't. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, he was like, or Superman Returns, or just a reliable like blockbuster person that
Yeah.
was also able to play into what this insidious nature in the business. But I think it's just like yeah, you like no one's forcing you to watch Bryan Singer movies. Um, but if you do want to watch them, you just don't be stupid about it. You know?
Yes. Don't like you have to acknowledge the crime, and the way I think of it is like acknowledge the crime and promote for the filmmaker to be punished for his actions.
How punish then?
Well, you let the justice system hopefully,
Well,
take them out, but you petition, you make a hell of a lot of noise like they've been doing. But that does raise, I mean, a whole other issue of, if we're getting a little too carried away with who we keep in the cultural viewpoint and who we don't.
yeah.
But that's a whole other can
Well,
of
well,
worms.
it's like if you know that stuff, like if you know stuff about Bryan Singer, do you want to support him in his next movie? Like,
Exactly.
but the
Yeah.
thing is, like, people did because Bohemian Rhapsody was like very successful. It had his name on it.
Yep.
It didn't have Dexter Fletcher's name on it, even though he directed like 70% of it or something like that.
And then he went on to do Rocket Man, which was a way better movie.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, at the very least, Dexter Fletcher got to go on and make Rocket Man.
Yeah.
But
You
just to
gotta
say
work
that,
your way
like,
up.
yeah, but just to say that, like, um, that there's still like people who still supported it, and I think it was if Bohemian Rhapsody happened today, people would tell the same perspective,
Hmm.
and they would still
Yeah.
value Bryan Singer more than they value the larger context of the problem that he is a part of.
I think you bring up a wonderful point there, which is sometimes we have to. I always thought, like, how do I watch a movie? How do I separate it? And then how do I say this guy? We should say they should stop watching movies, right? Great. But okay, stop making movies. Somehow get them to stop. I don't know how. It never will happen. It's a pipe dream, whatever. But what about, like, in terms of recognizing art and history, whether it be X-Men or, New York, Manhattan love story thing. I never watched a Woody Allen movie, so I couldn't name one at the top of my head. I don't know. Um, Diane Keaton kisses Woody Allen's butt again, whatever, so it's like, if we say, oh, you shouldn't watch those movies anymore, it's like, well, then you're just kind of ignoring history in a way. It's like if the Cosby Show became vastly unavailable, it's like, yeah, Bill Cosby did a horrible, disgusting thing, but just like Nazi Germany,
Yeah, are you gonna watch the Bill
ignore that
Cosby
what
Show
happened,
for enjoyment?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. And then do you watch it for enjoyment or analysis, or like, how do we see it? Because I mean, I'll be honest, I still would probably watch X-Men Days of the Future Past.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, there you go.
Would I be, but dear Lord, I wish someone else made it. But I mean, the thing is, humanity in general, we're all hypocrites. We're all going to say, oh, I don't do that because that's bad, but I do. It's like, yeah, but we always contradict ourselves. But that's okay. That's human nature. That's who we are. We double think everything, because that's how our brains sort of evolve. And when I look at something like, like Days of the Future Past, and know who got hurt and shattered through that, it's like, I've worked in the film industry myself. I've worked for people who treated me like crap, not the way those guys did, but I mean, through a period of time of healing, I was able to kind of like movies in general again. And to the victims, I couldn't even imagine what that is like. But I mean, as an audience member, it's difficult. Like, you don't know. It's like leaving. It's like almost like being stuck in a bad relationship. Like, how do you, like, okay, I like this movie, but I'm also kind of ignoring those who got hurt because I'm watching that movie.
Right.
So, like, what's the right thing to do? In the end, it's kind of like, well, business sells and I like money. And
yeah, well, I mean, like, if you watch Days of Future Past, you're probably going to watch your own copy of it, right? I mean, you're not going to put like a significant money dent in it either way.
No, I'm more like I'd stream it or something. I don't like
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Just like, I think that's a part of it. It's like we can still function with this art that's out there, but like we actually have like been given, we don't have to like lie to ourselves about it, and we can accept like a nuance in it,
Yeah.
what's already there, but we can then use that to make sure that like the new school of people do not treat people this way, And I think
Yeah.
that's a big part of it as well. That awareness of with the old school, with the old guard, with Woody and Bryan Singer and whoever, to then have that awareness to then be like, no, like we're not going to support people that we know, at least we know of,
Yeah.
in the new school or making new films and stuff like that, because we can help that, right? But then I guess it's also a sense of like we don't like who's like a new filmmaker that we know is problematic like that. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I found out one of my friends who is working. I won't name names, but
Mhm.
uh, she's worked for this one filmmaker for years. She's never said anything bad about him.
Mhm.
But then I read about this whole thing of how he was abusive on set and just using horrible terms,
Mhm.
towards the females. And basically he was just kind of like cracking the whip. And this is like in the very, very beginning of his career, like his first big movie.
Mhm.
And she just kind of recently left the industry. I'm not sure why. But she was working with this guy for a while and he gave her like everything, but I feel like at a certain point, I was like, was he psychologically tormenting her? and
Probably
she
sounds like
couldn't
it.
be telling it. Yeah, because the girl I know, she's not the one I'm talking about, but there's this girl who wrote an article. The girl I know is working for him, has worked for him, and I just kind of feel like I kind of want to ask her about it, but I don't.
No,
It's
I
so
yeah.
weird. Yeah,
I would trust that they would come out with it if they wanted to talk about it, kind of thing, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, but I think it's like today we learned about like more about Joss Whedon's behavior on the Justice League set, right?
yeah. And now
Like,
we
so
look at
what do we
Ray
do? So what do we
Fisher.
do about that?
Yeah. What do we do? What do we do outside of we can release the Snyderverse is what we could do.
That's right.
No.
Exactly. But what do we do with
Do we stop
that
watching the Avengers?
no, I'm talking about like
Exactly.
new Joss Whedon stuff.
Oh, a new Joss Whedon. Yeah, if he
Yeah,
came out with anything new, would it make money? I mean,
probably.
if it does, then there's nothing we can do. I mean, petition for him to go, but
But I
I
mean,
mean,
would you go see it?
no.
No, sorry. Would you make a point of not seeing it because it's like Joss Whedon? You know what I mean?
No, I don't know. I don't know until the event happens.
So
Like I
you wouldn't
really
know like until like the movie if it was
like I
movie.
know how big it is or something like that. But
Mhm.
here's yeah, because I just feel like I don't want to be in the position where everyone's covering it and then I'm not, and then everyone views me as like just oh my god, this is what all the victims go through.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just like literally as I was talking about that, I'm like, oh my god, you're making me realize what they're going through. Like really that's messed up.
What do you mean?
Just like because as I was talking about it, I'm like, well, uh, I was kind of denying not what the victims were going through, but like what society was going through. You
Hmm.
deny what's happening because you like it, and we're still going to do that because we can't change human behavior,
Hmm.
and we can't change if someone's going to watch it. Like I would be. Here's the thing: I was tying with the victims is they're afraid to speak out because they're afraid of being judged by everyone, and
Yeah.
I'm afraid to like say I'm not going to watch, let's say Joss Whedon's version of whatever it is that's getting amazing reception before it even comes out, and it's a huge thing. Like I don't want to write a whole article about why I'm not going to see it because I'm going to think everyone's going to go, oh, there he goes again,
Sure, sure,
sort of
sure.
thing. But I mean, yeah, that's weird. So it's like, or I could just not review it and just not say why. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I would say I have 2 cents about this with like Woody Allen,
Yeah.
because um there was a new Woody Allen movie that came out like a few months ago, A Rainy Day in New York. It finally came out in America. It didn't have a distributor for a long time,
Mhm.
but it finally got one. And at Ebert, it was the question of like, what do we do about it? And so my thinking was basically, well, we should cover it because it exists, but we don't have to like make the review talk about the backstory or whatever, or like kind of go into context. Like if people want to read about the Woody Allen movie, it'll be here. And it turns out it was like a bad Woody Allen movie, which is there's plenty of them.
Yeah. So
So
everyone
it's
went on to read the bad reviews who hate him.
yeah, or just like people didn't care about it, and then and then because the movie exists because it played like a couple of theaters and so forth, just like other outlets, like we reviewed it. I think it's going to be a much more interesting question of what happens when he kicks the bucket.
Well,
You
then
know,
everyone's gonna
you
be
know,
like, "Oh, he's a monster." Blah 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 blah
or I don't know, like, or they're gonna try to like find some way of like reckoning with like the quality of the movies with like, but then
blah.
there's also this
They did
thing.
that with Michael Jackson. They're like, you can't say anything about him. I'm like,
Mhm,
literally a week ago, everyone was making jokes about him. Or like
mhm.
literally, like a few days ago, you guys said nothing but pedophile jokes, and all of a sudden he died. You're like, oh, he's amazing. Like, oh, fuck you, fucking assholes. There, I snapped. I'll bleep it out.
Okay. Yeah, I think like but Michael, kicked the bucket before like a lot of his like accusers kind of got more visibility, it sounds like. so he's preserved.
Yeah.
But then like R. Kelly, you know, is in jail, and I don't think he's got as much radio play, you know,
Yeah.
because he's alive.
Yeah.
We're just to talk about like what do we do with these living artists who create, you know. And I do think it's also it's like it's tricky too because like you almost like want to like take into effect like the public narrative. Like, does the person like acknowledge this stuff? Do they try to make a public thing to work from it? Because like there is, you know, a possibility at like redemption, and like cancel culture does not exist because like we don't have that long of an attention span, you know,
Yeah.
to like really kind of like be dogging on somebody. But you can see plenty of people who like make it worse for themselves, or like who put themselves as to be some type of martyr, like Louis C.K., right?
Yeah.
When he like was reemerging and doing comedy sets, and like the leaked or not leaked, but like, you know, there's no recordings, but people were reporting on what the jokes were, and they were about him, you know, being a martyr, and
There
all
were
that kind
some
of stuff.
recordings recently, I
Oh,
think.
okay.
Not to cut you off, I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, there were some recordings, and oh my God, like
From Louis
he is,
C.K.
yeah, he's a complete asshole. Like honestly, I could tell you personally. I guess I could tell you the story of mine. A friend of mine, I can't say. I don't want to say another friend of mine story, but basically, he wouldn't say hi to her, and then he got her kicked out of the show just because, like, I guess she wasn't hot enough. Yeah, and
So yeah,
so
so yeah, you know,
yeah, yeah, it's like, how do you separate that? But I mean, yeah, it's hard. I think the main thing is like the material itself, but then again, it's like, yeah, but even if it wasn't the material, people got hurt,
right.
and I think we still live in a culture that is obsessed with Hollywood. Like they
Oh
are
yeah, totally.
obsessed with, like, although we're film critics, and it's kind of funny that we're like, oh, you're obsessed with Hollywood. It's like, yeah, you write about movies for a living. Shut up. But but the thing is, we center our reality, I think, around Hollywood. We center sort of everything that we consume by Hollywood, and when that reality is disturbed,
Right.
it's like then things become much more askew, within our psychosis.
I think, well, yeah, we rely on, you know, we to look up to Hollywood, right?
Yeah,
So like, how does it make us feel when like they're extremely flawed, or like, or they're like pedophiles, which is like one of the most, like one of the worst things you can be in the society,
yeah.
you
it's
know?
it's yeah, it's one of the worst things, most irredeemable things. uh it would be hard to make a sympathetic movie about a pedophile. I'm sure someone has done it, but like, they made that movie, I think, about Joe Paterno, and I'm like,
Right, right,
yeah, whatever. But
right. Yeah, that was a choice, and you know, that didn't really kind of catch steam, or like, but we also can't deny it. Like, there's also people who like do not have this kind of inner conflict because they do not kind of agree
mm,
with this idea of, you know,
that's the most depressing tag for "you'll probably agree." You probably don't agree with this.
no, no, just
Yeah, no,
but there's plenty of people who are, you know,
yeah,
there are plenty of MAGA chuds out there who want to watch Woody Allen movies now. And they've like, and they're like, they've been in my mentions and stuff like that, and like they are out there, and they think,
what?
no, yeah, they look at watching Woody Allen movies now as like a part of like a free speech thing.
Oh
You know,
God.
I haven't. It's
Yeah.
I can't say that there's been many of them or anything, but I've like seen it, and I've seen other, and I've like looked into their accounts and stuff, and that's just an example of like that also is what kind of can happen too, especially when this cause of like Alan v. Pharaoh is like then bought by people who like think that free speech is being taken away from them because accountability is now in the public narrative, you know?
Exactly. And now, yeah, it's like, we have sort of this counterculture in America where I don't think these MAGA crazy people would ever care about a Woody Allen movie. I mean, one, because he's not Christian, and they don't like anything unlike who's not a white Christian guy,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And the other thing is wait, you guys are all of a sudden in love with New York? Like, I don't think so. Like, you are in love with New York because you saw the cinematic language and the beauty of that film. To them, they're just like, hey, cancel culture hates him. I'm gonna like him. It's a knee-jerk reaction that, a very ugly but large side of America has.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's like it doesn't matter like kind of like the location or like the education or anything like that. I think it is just like about these ideals or these ideologies um, that start to become like liberal versus conservative, you know, uh,
Yes.
and that people like pick sides and that they like and like the same way that Dr. Seuss becomes like this martyr for the most ridiculous reason because it's not like um, we all like it's their own choice to change that, right?
Mm.
Um,
Get offended about Potato Head?
yeah, exactly. But that
Yeah.
was their choice to do that. They should be applauded for that.
Yeah, I mean, now we want to politicize anything because everything is in absolutes.
Mm,
It's either you hate something or you love something, and in life everything is mixed. Life isn't. I always think it's weird when people say life isn't black and white; it's gray. I'm like, well, gray is a singular color, and
mm,
life is a mixture of colors, and in that mixture, we don't know. We have to find a balance in everything. And I think my balance was like, I can watch something that's a piece of history, but would I support something new? And now that we've really talked and digressed about it, I don't know if Joss Whedon came out with a new hit, I just wouldn't review about it. And then if people ask me why, I just say, like, I don't have to.
right.
And
Right. Well, yeah, you don't
not
have
make
to.
a
There's
not
plenty of
not
other
make a
stuff
huge
out there.
speech about it.
But that's still your choice. I mean, like, but you also
Yeah.
could review it and be like, and take it on its own merits.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, uh, it w- it's just that line of like, we're not gonna like send a message by not reviewing his stuff.
Yeah. That's true.
Um,
Because then you just feed into them. You feed into the trolls. No matter what you do, you
yeah,
lose.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But
The lesson for life, kids. You grow up and you always lose. No, I just uh but it's great to be able to I think we can accept culture and history, and if something new comes out and you want to cover it objectively, fine.
right.
Finding that objectivity is just, you still are able to do it, which is just amazing. I wish I could do it like you do. It's just great, man.
To find
But
objectivity.
yeah, in works of film, like, because you're saying like you still were able to review the Woody Allen movie and put it
Oh,
online.
I didn't review it.
Oh,
But I led the thinking, I guess, behind that we should
oh,
review it. Peter Sapsinski reviewed it and did
yeah,
a fine job, but he also I love Peter very much, and I knew he was just gonna like shoot it straight, and that's what we needed. But again, I think it's just like what happens when Woody dies.
yeah.
What like how are we gonna tackle that?
I
And
just
I
feel
don't
like
know.
I'm worried like people are gonna say like, oh, you covered that film. Why? It's just like, go
Hmm.
do whatever. I mean, Roger Ebert even brought up Woody Allen in his autobiography,
Oh, we did. Okay.
and he said something like, I don't know the details of the case. I don't know if he's guilty or not. And
Mm.
it's like, now it's kind of like, can we really be that indifferent? Because it's kind of like saying, yeah, I don't know, I'm not going to think about it, which is weird because like Roger was probably the most woke man for his age I've ever seen in my
Yeah,
entire
yeah,
life, you know. But yeah, we don't have a conclusion. Our conclusion, folks, is we don't know.
no, yeah,
Appreciate
yeah. I was like,
appreciate the come up with your own answer.
yeah,
Who do you agree with? Do you agree? We're
right, right.
disagreeing. Where are we
What is
right now?
agreeing?
Yeah.
Right, where are we? Where are we? No, I think
Yes.
it's like it's just like, but at least I like that. At least opens the space for like nuance, and the
Yeah.
fact that like we can't just you know, um, I don't know. There's so many people who were a part of those movies. Like again, I want to watch Manhattan for the Gordon Willis cinematography.
Yeah. And
Um,
honestly, to me, I don't think there's anything wrong with that because it's a piece of history. And you
Right.
know, if you throw away, and I'm not saying it in the same regards, because it could be thought of as, you know, when people were tearing down the Confederate statues and people said, "Oh, that's a piece of our history." I'm like,
Well, that's
yeah,
not
but your
take that down.
context of that is really different.
Right,
You
right.
know.
Or like what those statues symbolize is should not be celebrated.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that is symbolizing something different.
Right.
Woody Allen's films, I get, oh, they're symbolizing love in the end.
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
course, we know personally what he was doing, but I think in the end, it wasn't promoting something that's going to hurt other people,
Mm.
is the thing. So I think if you were to agree with us, do you agree that uh, art that you can separate the art from the artist, or you can't? Yes, this is kind of a yes, no, or it's complicated. And
It
in,
definitely is
and
complicated, but I think there's nothing wrong with complicated.
exactly, I think in life,
Or
it's like
honest.
whenever you say, I'm not gonna have one of those tacky YouTube thumbnails, although I could for more
Oh
views.
yeah.
Yeah, of like, you know, a picture of all the artists that we mentioned, you know, and then they're gonna be a picture of me like with one of those like, bro, whoa, I'm so surprised faces,
Hmm.
and then just say, did separate the art from the artist, question mark, like,
Hmm.
can we separate the art from the artist? And it's like, guess what the answer to like all those YouTube videos are? Well, it depends. And Nick, it is amazing to see you. I'm glad that after all these years I finally got to have you back on the
Yeah,
show
thanks for having me, man.
to talk about one of the most uncomfortable things possible to talk about.
I'm honored to be picked for it. I'm honored to be picked for that one.
It's like whatever Nick sees to eat, it's like, prepare to be happily uncomfortable. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, but thank you, man,
Thank you, everybody.
for coming on. Check out all of Nick's stuff on RogerEbert.com. You can catch him on Vulture.com. You can catch a link to his article with the directors of Mia versus Pharaoh in the description below or in the podcast, whatever you're listening to. And folks, we will see you later. And hopefully you'll probably agree with us or yourself. We'll see. Because it depends.
It depends.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what's true. What matters is what's believed.